I'm Anne, and I'm going to be making the world's best double chocolate chip cookies. These will make you famous on your street. They've made me famous in my kids' schoolyards, they've made me famous at my church functions, and I'm really happy to share it with you. There is an urban legend about these cookies. The story goes that a woman in the United States went into one of the better department stores to have lunch, and after lunch she was served a chocolate chip cookie as a treat. She thought it was the best chocolate chip cookie she had eaten in her life, so she asked the waitress if she could have the recipe. The waitress came back from the kitchen and said yes, she could have the recipe, but there'd be a charge of $2.50. The woman said, no problem, add it to my credit card bill, and off she went. Well, the end of the month came and the woman got her Visa bill, and there was the charge from the store, not for $2.50, but for $200.50. She phoned the store and said there had to be some mistake, and was told no. $250 was their charge for the recipe for these chocolate chip cookies. Well, this woman thought that no chocolate chip cookie was worth $250, so she decided she was going to make the recipe available to everyone she knew, and she put it on the internet, sent it out by email, and I got it from a friend of a friend of a friend who tells me that this story is true. I don't know if it is, but I'll tell you, I think this recipe is worth $250 and more. It's really easy, and this is what we're going to use. I've got a cup of sugar, a cup of brown sugar. I've got 1 teaspoon each of baking soda and baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now this recipe can be doubled. If you double it, double the salt. With some recipes you don't double the salt, but with this one a little extra salt will help. This is 2 cups of flour. I sifted the flour, but you don't have to. Whether I sift the flour or not really depends on how much time I have that day. And this is oatmeal. In a minute, I'm going to throw it in the blender and turn it into soft oatmeal dust. And you'll see me do that. I've got a cup of butter, I've got vanilla, I've got 2 eggs, and the main ingredients, the stars of the show, I've got a whole package of mini chocolate chips. I like the mini ones better because I'm going to make small cookies. And 1 Hershey's chocolate bar. Again, you can use it's a Jersey milk. You can use any kind of chocolate bar. Don't bother buying an expensive one though. It's not the amount of cocoa that's going to make a difference, it's the amount of fat. And you can get that in any store-bought chocolate bar. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cream the butter together with the 2 sugars. And mix it up with my hands, which will help me soften the butter a little more. I'm not afraid to get my hands messy in the cause of great chocolate chip cookies. Boy, your hands feel great when they come out of the butter. It feels like you've just had a manicure and they put that oil in your hands. So the butter and the sugars are done, and now we're going to add into there the eggs, 2 eggs, and the teaspoon of vanilla. And now we're going to mush this all up. If you want to do it with your hands again, do it. I used to do this with my kids sometimes, and this was the stage at which they really wanted to get their hands in there, because it was very, very mucky. Now I'm going to mix the dry ingredients. So here's my 1 teaspoon of baking powder, my 1 teaspoon of baking soda, my 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, salt, my flour, 2 cups of flour. And now I'm going to take the oatmeal over and I'm going to blend it into oatmeal flour. This is also kind of a secret ingredient because it's the oatmeal that's going to grab all of the fat and moisture that goes into this recipe, and it's going to hold it in the cookies and keep it even after the cookies are baked. A lot of homemade cookies and even store-bought cookies are crunchy and dry, but these cookies are going to stay moist for days, and it's the oatmeal holding in the moisture that's going to do that for us. So I take my 2½ cups of oatmeal, I toss it into my blender. Stop it part way through, take your spatula and just make sure that the bigger pieces are getting done. Some recipes will refer to this as oatmeal oatmeal flour. Some recipes will refer to this as blended oatmeal. It's the same thing, and any kind of oatmeal will do. I think I use an instant 5-minute oatmeal. I'm going to mix up the dry ingredients. So we're almost all the way there. Isn't that gorgeous? I just think it's beautiful how the caramel colored wet ingredients mix in with the caramel colored dry ingredients. That's perfect. So it's still quite dry, but if you pull it apart, you'll be able to feel the moisture inside. Now my original recipe called for half a package of chocolate chips, but forget that. Chocolate chips are not a low-calorie treat, so why not go all the way? I put in a full package. And as I say, I like the mini chocolate chips, if you can find them. They're not always easy to find, because I'm going to make small cookies. These are quite rich. You don't want a big, big cookie, and the mini chocolate chips just seem to suit a small cookie more. You can see there are millions of chocolate chips, and you just take a while and work with it and pick them all up. It's well worth it. We're going to take a chocolate bar and grate it, the whole thing. I usually just grate the whole thing right on top, and then I mix it in after. And make sure everything is mixed in there together. I have 2 cookie sheets, because, well, one sheet is in the oven. I'm going to be able to get another sheet ready. This will make a lot of cookies. This is probably going to make about maybe 5 dozen cookies, and I can usually get 1 dozen on each pan. So if I have 2 pans going, it really does take half the time. So I'm going to take the butter and just very, very lightly butter it. I'm only going to do this once. For the first time. I'm not going to do this every time I take the cookies out and take them off the sheet. The fat in the cookies themselves will start to lubricate the sheet, so I won't need this. I make a small ball, just about like that. If you want, you can stick a fork mark on it, make it look pretty, but believe me, nobody's going to care. They're going to get eaten either way. Now when I put it in, they're only going to bake for 6 minutes. The first pan may be 30 seconds longer because it takes a while for the pan to warm up, but only 6 minutes. And you'll see that we're going to take them out when they almost don't look quite done. The reason for this is twofold. One, they're going to continue to cook for a little bit as they sit on the pan, and secondly, that's going to keep them moist afterwards. We don't want to cook all of the moisture out of them. It's been 6 minutes, and it's time to get our fabulous cookies out of the oven. They look perfect. And I'm going to leave them here just to cool for a minute. I've got them sitting on a cutting board, but you can leave them on the top of your stove. They're going to cool for a minute. I'm going to put in the other pan that I've got ready, and after about a minute or 30 seconds, these can be taken off, and they'll be firm enough to sit on the cooling rack. But if it's anything like my house, chances are a lot of the cookies won't even make it as far as the cooling rack, little on the plate. Double chocolate chip cookies, I don't know where the recipe came from, but I'll tell you, this isn't a $250 cookie, it's worth about $1 million.